Robert Hunt, thank you so much for coming on the Inner Edison Podcast. I appreciate you being here today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, you're just so cheerful. I'm a grumpy old vet, and you're just so cheerful.
It's a choice, right?
Okay, if you say so.
Well, you have a day. You're going to go through it one way or another. I can go through it and be grumpy, or I can go through it and
Yeah.
be joyful. I choose
Well,
joy.
Yeah, that works for you, and that works for me. The biggest thing is I'm happy, but it doesn't look like it on my face. Right? I have one of those poker faces. And I remember a guy telling me, he was my boss. He's like, the thing I don't like about you is I never know what you're thinking. Yeah. My wife's like, this is Ed happy. This is Ed sad. Well, I mean, it's just one of those things. And again, it doesn't matter. I know how I feel. It's not, but just because I don't project it doesn't mean that's not who I am.
People like me need people to acknowledge what I'm saying and to nod their head and go, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And when people are just kind of deadpan faced, you're just like, well, is this landing? Is this working? I don't know what to do. Are you happy? Do you want me to change this? It's complicated.
So you're saying you're needy?
I'm very needy and insecure. It's a great combination.
Well, most people who are on stage are so insecure, it's ridiculous. I know a lot of people, and I've been on stage. I'm not one of those insecure people, but I do know a lot of them, and they're just as insecure as they've been doing it forever, and they're just as insecure as the day they got up there.
It's the passion and purpose that drives me to push outside my comfort zone. Comfort zone is another word for fear. And when you have fear of something, it holds a grip on you. And because I have a passion for what I do for a living and my life and the things I care about, I press on to do things that I'm not comfortable with because there's a reason behind it.
And by the way, thank you for your book. Unfortunately, I don't have it right here. It's sitting by my chair because I have my studio in my house now. It's just so much easier than going to the office at 5 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night to do podcasts.
Yeah. I got the same thing here. This is my home office. It's set up for good things like this.
Yeah. It's just, I like it better. I can do so much more, and I don't have to drive all over the place.
Yeah. A good point.
Yeah. All right. And so how did you get to where you are now, Robert? I mean, have you always been your own boss or that kind of stuff? Have you always been an entrepreneur or?
No, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had no inklings at all. I've always worked for somebody. I was director of marketing and sales for different companies over my career when I lived in Southern California. And then I really got tired of taking jobs with companies that just couldn't figure out what they wanted to do. And I ended up being a victim of someone else's bad behavior. And you'd work to do what you can, and then they can't run the business. So they have to lay off a bunch of people. Marketing people are disposable. Hey, you're expensive. We don't know what you do anyway. Goodbye. And so after enough years of that, I just figured I got to stop working for people. I got to do my own thing. And it was really out of a desperation to find really quality opportunities to make a difference. And then we moved to Texas in 2010. I brought the marketing quest out here. Couldn't find clients who would let me do strategy. Somebody always wants to make it build a website or do a brochure or help me build a trade show booth. Those tasks are fine, but if you're not aligned against what you really want to be known for, the marketing's a waste. Right. And so I had met the guy who did peer groups about the franchise and was responsible for that in Texas. And as I listened to what he does, I thought, oh man, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. And so I quit doing marketing and sales, jumped in to be a facilitator for CEO peer groups back in 2013. This will be my 12th year. And I love it. And I'm really good at it. And I have fun. And it's a great journey.
All right. So what exactly does that mean for somebody who has no idea what you're talking about? I have two questions. So we're going to ask one of them. But the first one, I want to go back a little bit. When you said you were in Southern California, what companies did you work for?
These were all business to business. I sold woven fiberglass fabric. I know that's pretty cool. I sold Nomex.
If you had really expensive sports cars, of course it is.
Well, it went into printed circuit boards. I sold millions of yards a year, and at $1.50 a yard. I sold Nomex honeycomb core in the aerospace industry, selling into Boeing and Douglas and all these other aerospace companies. And so I had to know just enough to be able to say what the coefficient of the thermal expansion would be for this. Not really know what that means, but I could say it. And I was always in the very tech-driven or high technology-driven manufacturing stuff. I also was in the cellular communications industry with cell phones, working with Verizon and T-Mobile and all those guys. So I was always in some kind of B2B application.
And people don't realize there were some big companies down there.
Yeah.
Years ago, there was a lot of big companies.
I assume they left by now.
Well, they're probably all in Texas. Somewhere where there was more tax, beneficial to them.
Yeah, and people can work. People can make decisions in Texas. We're not mired by all the baloney that goes on in California. We can get things done.
It's not as bad as there are certain segments of California that's really bad, and there's other places like if you look at the last election, the middle of the state all went red so far. I'm just saying it's not as what everybody thinks it is. It's in its way of changing back once these people get out of the way.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hate career politicians. I believe in the 8 years and back to your community to help out like it was supposed to be.
Well, when I grew up in Southern California, it was a beautiful place. Everybody wanted to be there. Everybody was nice to each other. We didn't have racial lines drawn up. Everyone I went to school with was from all different kinds of nationalities. The only people I ever felt really uncomfortable with, it took me till high school to find someone not to like, was when they brought in people from Iran and they were holding the Shah was getting kicked out and there was all this terrorist stuff going on. And I'm like, well, I don't get these guys. And so up until then, I didn't really think anyone was any different than me, regardless of their skin color. But that was California is a melting pot. We all melted really well. And then now it's just angry. Everybody's angry and everybody's stressed out, can't afford anything, and blah blah blah.
Well, they might have been. We're not that bad. I'm just letting you know we're not as bad as what people think we are. There's that 1% of the population on the right and the left that's equals 1%. That's so loud. That's all you hear.
Yeah.
You think that's the way it is when in reality, and when you figure out that only 10% of the population actually puts stuff on social media, you'll understand that is not half that 10% you don't even want to talk to. They're the crazies. The other 10 are people like us trying to do stuff.
Oh, I'll go with that. And of course, you're up in the northern part of California. You're up
Central
out
Valley.
of Orange County is so burdened by all the baloney going on.
Actually, Orange County was very conservative. Same with San Diego anymore, which people don't realize that. LA, forget it. Once you get to LA, it's over. But Orange County and San Diego are very conservative anymore. It's totally weird. Everybody thinks it's only the coastal elites along the coast but there's so many of them that make up the problem for the state.
Yeah.
But let's move on from that because that's not what we're here to talk about.
We're here to talk about California sucking.
No, I mean, I'm on talk radio here locally, so I do a lot of talk radio so I know what's going on. I have to be on top of everything, and a lot of people go, "Why don't you leave the state?" I go, "I'd rather stay and fight than leave the state because I like the weather. I love the weather here, even though Modesto gets hot in the summer for a couple months. But overall, the weather's the way it is. I can be in my cabin in an hour and 10 minutes, and it's 5,200 altitude with snow if I wanted to.
That's awesome.
Which, I can't do that if I'm in Texas or someplace like that.
Yeah.
But everybody's got they got to move to where they're happy with. That's all right. Let's back up. So I understand the companies. Now my other question was, what was my other question? What did that mean? What was that question? See, I should have not moved on. I apologize. I'm sure someone will go, Ed, your question was, it's too late by now.
Well, you told me the first one. I didn't know what the second one was.
The second one was the first. I told you the first one, then I asked you the second one, which was about your businesses.
Okay. Well, for me, where I am right now, I've been doing the peer groups the last 13 years.
And that's what it was. What does that mean by the peer groups? So people understand what that is.
Yeah.
Because somebody who's in networking might think it's peer-to-peer groups, like in networking, and it might be kind of similar, but they don't really know. So explain.
Oh, okay. I've never heard it connected that way. In the world that I run in, these are business owners and CEOs of companies here in the DFW area who come together once a month to talk about the challenges of running their business, the frustrations, the issues they face, and to learn from other people. You already know how to run your business, so we're not telling you what to do with your business, but we're asking questions about what do you want to get done and why aren't you getting it done? And a lot of the problems we deal with is head trash, isolation, frustration, a lot of the emotions that we have as leaders, as humans. And so having a bunch of other people who are successful leaders who don't have any emotion attached to your problems, when we hear them, we can just objectively go, hey, you're okay. You'll be fine. Here's something that we did when we were working through this. Here's an idea that I have. And you learn from other people. You get the support you need to be your best and to reach your goals.
So it's kind of like a mastermind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's another name for it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But I think a lot of people understand the peer, even I understood it. But you're helping people because what people want to realize is it's so lonely at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because you can't talk to your employees about anything, because if you do, they're not your friends. They're your employees and you mess up. So I remember I worked for a guy in Southern California, we grew a large mortgage company, and he wanted people to be his friends, and it always messed everything up.
Well, you could be friendly to everybody,
I
but at
didn't
the
say
end of the
friendly,
day,
friend.
yeah, at the end of the day, you have to make really hard decisions.
Rob, all right, you're back. All right. Don't touch the cord.
Don't touch the cord. Yeah. So, the whole idea of you being in charge is that you have to make really hard decisions, and sometimes you don't have enough information to do it. You are overwhelmed emotionally. One of the beauty things about being in a peer group or mastermind group that I lead is that you have the opportunity for accountability. If you are running the business, you can do whatever you want in a lot of cases. You can get away with it, but a lot of those decisions can be bad decisions. And your employees won't always feel comfortable saying, gee, that doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this? Because they're worried about losing their job or whatever. And so having other people who don't have anything attached to your journey can give you honest feedback and input that you need. One of the beautiful things I've seen through the years of doing this is the level of accountability that is available to those who will choose it. If you want to come in and say how smart and important you are and tell everyone you're great, you're never going to have anything that you work on because everything's perfect. But if you come in and say, look, I'm maxed out. I don't know how to handle this. And I don't know what I'm doing. And I've got problems with this and problems with that. Then the whole room's going, yeah, we got that. Here's what we do. And you learn and you get encouragement and you fix it. And that's the benefit of being vulnerable so you can get the kind of support to make good decisions and survive.
Now, so how long did it take you to get the peer group going?
It was a year to get the first group going. I had just moved to Texas a couple years before, so I didn't really know anybody. So it took a while, but I had built some good friendships and I just did the old salesman thing, go out, talk to people. And peer groups are not for everybody. Not everyone is comfortable being vulnerable and transparent about their challenges. Some people's egos are too big and they can't let people into their secrets. So it was hard to find those people and go through a lot of meetings to find people who are willing to be honest enough to work on their issues to get better.
And see, I like masterminds or whatever on peer groups, whatever you want to call them, especially when there are people in other industries. I don't want to be in one that's in my industry because that's when you get into, well, this is what I'm doing. Then they take what you're doing, and next thing you know, you got bigger competition. And I think some people are afraid of that, and I think it's important to be in those groups where you don't have other people that are in the same industry as you.
Yeah, that's why I hesitate to use the word mastermind, because in my experience, the word mastermind usually meant someone in the same kind of vertical all coming together to talk about best practices and share ideas off of one mindset. We want a diversity in how we do things. We want people who think very different than you. So we have someone from healthcare and someone from manufacturing and someone from IT and someone from construction, because the limits that you have in your industry are not always shared by other industries. So when you say, well, we just can't do that, well, that's in your industry. You can't do it, but we do it all the time. And here's how we do it. So that diversity of mindset is very helpful.
Right. And just because you think you can't do it in your industry doesn't mean you can't. You know, I mean, you
It
have to,
hasn't been done yet.
yeah, you just have to think outside the box and do things that, because one of the things we did years and years ago in Texas was we could do cash out refinances. There's a law in Texas, the way you did it, if you did it the wrong way, you actually own the mortgage and they don't have to pay you back. Well, we figured a way around that by shorting every loan by $1. And we paid that $1. And that's how we learned how to do those in tech. They were talking 25 years ago. But that was
There's always
thinking
a way.
outside the box. When
Yeah.
someone says it can't be done, and the question is, well, how can you just have to figure a way to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, it's one of the problems of being an owner of your company is you get beat down and you get defeated and frustrated and overwhelmed, and you just kind of, the energy level that you would need to be creative again is gone. And so sometimes other people's creativity and energy substitutes for your own. And you can hear someone say, no, this is not a big deal. Here's what you do. And it gives you a second wind. And I think it's just, especially in the last 4 years, it's been a beatdown and leaders are just exhausted. And to have to come up with a new idea and a new way to do something, it's really hard. And there's a lot of pressures. I think that we feed off of each other in a positive way.
Gotcha. Yeah. Because for me, it's been the last 2 years. Once interest rates at 5% higher than when they were, it just destroyed our industry. Um, and that's, and people don't understand that. And I was angry for the first year. And then I realized did this happen to me or did this happen for me? And it's how you looked at it. And so I'm like, okay, this has happened for me. So I could redo certain things. Yes, I'm still hurting from it and other stuff and haven't come out the other side. I didn't say it was going to turn around in a month. With what I'm doing, but it allowed me more time to do other things that I want to do. Like I have 3 books. I wrote 1 book and it came out 2 Februarys ago, and I have 3 more books right now ready to go. So
Wow.
because of that, yeah.
Way to go. Capitalize on those opportunities. We all face them. The people who hunker down and just sit in fear, they get left behind by the people who look at an opportunity. There were more millionaires created during the Depression than any other time in history. And that's because people looked at the opportunities and figured out things are miserable. How do I turn around and make something good out of this? And some people pivoted. We use that phrase an awful lot in 2020 and 21, and they figured out how to make stuff that served the catastrophe we were going through. Or other people said, hey, this is a great time for me to change my whole business model and go do something different. And they survived and did quite well.
Right. And it takes time. I mean, a lot of people think when you start a business that it's overnight success. It's usually 15 years of overnight success.
Yeah.
But in my industry, in the mortgage industry, the question is always how long you've been in the business. Is it 20 years, or is it 21 years at a time? Because have you not? And that got me to think about, okay, well, as a business owner, yes, I can focus on this, but I also need maybe some other types of streams of income to where I don't, if something like this happens again, it doesn't affect me as greatly as it is, because there's things that we do. We build a business and we have it amazing, and all of a sudden someone shuts a pipeline down and we have inflation that goes through the roof. I've been doing this for 27 years. Never seen anything like this in the past that saw rates go up like we did. Normally it's usually 1 or 2%. You still have business. You still have 65% of existing home sales or other stuff going on, not 35%. And then nobody doing any refinances or anything else.
Yeah. And no one letting go of money. Money's been really hard to get. My clients are wanting to start new businesses and open up new divisions and buy other companies, but money's very tight to come by these days.
Yeah, unless you're in the government.
Most of them aren't.
I'm just, it's amazing how they can spend that $1 billion so easily.
Yeah.
And that, and you have to focus on what you're good at and what you're not good at, and have somebody else take care of it. What have you found the biggest challenge in starting a peer group?
For me, my biggest challenge was just I was so doing it by myself that the motivation to keep going was difficult. I never was wanting to be my own business owner. When I started doing peer groups, someone else owned the franchise and I was working under their banner. And his promise was, I'll fill your groups, you just run them. And to me, the idea of facilitating meetings with business owners and helping them be their best sounded awesome. And I didn't want to spend all my time trying to do sales. I wanted to spend time helping people. Well, he bailed about 2 years into it. He turned the franchise back and quit. And so that left me with the choice. Do I stay and do what I'm loving and enjoying, or do I step up and start doing it myself? And so I had to spend a lot of time doing sales, and it wasn't where I found joy. And so I found a lot of times I avoided it. I didn't want to go out and make sales calls. So I wouldn't make sales calls. It's my own business. I'll do what I want. And so it was a very slow build. And that's what really got us into a tough place financially, where we, through those years of building, ran out of money, cashed in our 401k, cashed in our savings, just wasn't making the kind of money that sustained our lifestyle. And at one point we got into $90,000 into debt. And it was a really tough way of living for a long time. And we write about it in the book because we want people to understand that, whatever decision you make, you got to own it. And that's what accountability really is. You own it. And if you decide that you want to go ahead and spend money more than you make, that's your choice, but you need to own that. And we kept making excuses for why things were they were, or blaming things, or saying there's nothing we could do about it, or just hoping maybe next year it'll get better. Next year it'll get better. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And it wasn't until we finally got to the point we said, wait, nobody cares until we do. And if we're willing to make the changes that need to be made to have the life that we really want, we can do something about this, but we got to own it. And that's what we did. That's the journey we outline in the book.
And so how did you make that change?
We sold our house. We had a very nice house with a movie theater upstairs and all the big furniture that would be in a big house like that. We sold it all, sold it for pennies on the dollar, the furniture, and sold it through a real estate agent, and made enough money to pay off every bit of what we owed, and moved into this rental house that we live in now. And we have been living a life of modesty. We always live below what we earn, and we're trying to rebuild all that money we cashed out through our retirement plan, and being very prudent. But it really came down to selling the house and tearing off the Band-Aid, starting over.
That's challenging because a lot of people won't do that.
Yeah, it was challenging. We talk about it in the book that wants you to come to the decision that nobody cares about your problems until you're willing to care about them enough to do something, that you acknowledge the reality. Where are you at? Well, we owe $90,000. The second thing you do is embrace the suck. And it was going to suck to sell our house. It was humiliating. I have clients who are successful business owners, and I had to admit to them that I made really bad choices in my finances and I'm broke. And that was humiliating and humbling. But that journey of where we wanted to go was going to be hard, but we just were committed to do it. That's embracing the suck. We found the solution, found someone to sell our house for us, sold the house, found a place to live, move in here. By March of 2020, we had sold the house. The world was shutting down for COVID. And in April, we paid off everything and we were debt free. And it was amazing. And my mind became free and clear. The confidence I had, the swagger as I approached situations. If it didn't work out and it was a good client, walk away. I don't care. I don't need money. I'll work at Walmart. I don't owe anybody. And it was just this amazing turnaround in our lives. And that was the catalyst for the way we wanted to pursue our lives the rest of our lives.
Now, so you said is your wife involved?
Yeah, yeah. My beautiful wife, Kathy, we've been married 26 years. She's awesome. And she was the one who was, when I said the challenge, let's sell the house and start over, she said, okay. I don't know many people's spouse who would just go, okay. I think that, especially my wife, she found her identity in her home. She loved to entertain. She loved to have people over for Christmas and holidays. And all that was gone. We moved to this little house. I mean, we still have people over. It's just not the same vibe. And that's okay. We're working through the emotions of the different perspective. But hey, some people live in a 1-bedroom apartment and they all share it with a lot of people. And I feel very blessed to live the life I have. It's just different than what I had thought it would be many years ago. But I'd rather be debt free and with my wife in contentment and joy than to have stuff and be stressed.
So now you've done this, right? And you've been doing this because you said it was a pandemic. So we're in 2025. So you've been building again for the next 4 years. How are you doing differently than the first time?
I'm being very good at sales. I'm being very intentional. I realized that there were a lot of things I was lazy about. That's one of the traps as a business owner. You can be lazy and no one knows because no one knows what you're supposed to do. It's your business. You just kind of do stuff. And so if I didn't want to sell, I didn't sell. And so I didn't set measurable goals and I wasn't accountable. I'm part of a peer group myself and I have a coach myself. I do executive coaching, but I have a coach and I want to be accountable and nobody can hold anyone else accountable. You can only hold yourself accountable. And if you want to. And so I create places of accountability in my life. So I have an executive coach that I share, here's what I'm working on. And they ask me questions and challenge me along the way. And I have a peer group that I'm part of that I share my goals. I just met with them this morning and we talk about the things we're doing so that I have a place to be accountable.
Now, is it the same peer group that you run? I mean, the same company?
I do for the peer group I'm a part of, I do run that group, but I'm running it as a member who's also involved. That way I can share my numbers and my results and the things that I'm working on.
All right. So, and then the peer group that you created, because what's the name of your company?
It's REF Dallas, Ref Dallas.
Okay. Now, is it a franchise or is it yours?
It's a franchise and I own it, but it is a franchise.
And the franchise it's the company of peer groups. So they help you find the people for the group?
No, they don't. No, they don't.
So I'm sorry, just going to ask, what do you get from the peer group then?
From the franchise?
Yeah.
They gave me a chance and I didn't know what I was doing and I needed to learn. And they trained me and they gave me support for the beginning years. They're nice people, but we don't do much together. So I don't want to speak anything of them.
No, I'm not. I just asked a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because a lot of times people do franchises and there's certain ones that are really good because what they do. And there's other ones some people go, why am I doing that? I could do everything this myself once I learn. But that's, you never know. Some people just want to be told what to do and run a certain way and not have to think about things.
Yeah, I needed some learning. I really didn't know anything about what I was doing. So facilitation skills, understanding the peer group dynamic, some content early on in the years when I really wasn't very experienced with things. They gave me content and they had good resources that they would bring for our annual retreats. And I learned from other people who've been doing it for years. So there was a camaraderie that got me started. So they gave me my shot.
Right. Now you said retreats. Do you do a retreat as your current peer group?
Mm-hmm. We go away a couple times a year. We do a 1 day session, one in the spring and 2 days in the fall, and it's with our spouses. And we're building a community. The vision of my business is to create a community where business leaders feel loved and cared for. That's specifically the word love, because I want them to know that there's someone who loves them when things are tough. And so we were building this community where they feel cared for and loved.
Wow. So what's next?
Hmm.
Because you wrote a book. When did your book come out?
It came out in September 22.
And that's Nobody Cares.
Nobody cares until you do. I really just kind of wrote it and go, good, done, and moved on. But I realized that 480 books a day get published, and my book is invisible. And even though the publisher who helped us get it going has it available on Target and Barnes and Noble and Walmart and all these places, nobody knows it's there. And so it's not moving. And I didn't write it to make money. I mean, I'd have to sell 50,000 copies to break even.
Mhm.
And I think so far we've maybe sold 5,000 copies. But I want to change people's lives. And so I'm trying to figure out how to take this book and the principles of it and do workshops around the world. That's my next quest. Is has the power to free your life. This has the power to give you joy and hope and contentment. And I've experienced it. I've watched my clients do it. And those people who are truly accountable, they own their journey. They're not blaming. They're not making excuses. They're not a victim. They're victorious. And it might still be hard, but it's hard to be a victim too. And so I want people to understand about accountability so that they can have the same freedom and power that we are experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how many people are writing books. There's just a lot of them. And then even like I use mine for my clients so that if they understand my process, they understand what's going on. I give them to other people to read, and it's about educating my industry.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote the ones I wrote. It's not to make money off of it. I interview people who do, different volumes of books, and, they got to sell, like you said, a lot of books to make money, and they're not selling that many books.
Right. A lot of people use it as a marketing tool. Hey, I'm a banker. Here's a book I wrote. Here, I'm a financial advisor. Look, I know my stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But people throw those around like they're like business cards. And
Exactly what they are.
yeah. And I want people really to read it and change. We're actually in the process of recording the Audible version of the book. And I've recorded my part, and he's my co-author. He's going to record his next. And we want to put out an Audible because there's a certain portion of the world who will never read a book in paper, but they'll listen to a book. I don't like the idea of people listening to our book because it's like a workbook and we want you to stop and think and do things. But I'd rather have them get exposed to the principles and then go back and buy the book and work on it than to never read it at all. And so we're committing to do the audiobook because we really do want to reach more people.
Yeah, but you can put together PDFs that they could download to do the actual work with while they're listening to it. Because I only listen to books. I don't read usually, unless I'm having that author on my podcast, then I read their book. So yeah, I mean
and I'll listen to a book when I'm driving somewhere, and then I'll come back and read it or I won't if I realize, hey, I'm not that into it. I usually don't finish the audio book and just walk away. But if I like it and I really want to soak into it, I'll go back and get the book and read it and highlight. And usually it becomes the content that I share with my clients, because if I'm learning something that's changing my life, I think it has bearing to their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. Anything else that I didn't ask you today I should have asked you?
I told you about my beautiful wife.
Multiple times.
The thing I think is I just want to encourage people that a lot of people think they're accountable, but they're really not. And I think that if you look at your life objectively and take out the emotion of it, just because you show up to work every day doesn't make you accountable. It makes you responsible. You get a paycheck for that. Here's your paycheck. Thanks for coming in. But accountable is really doing what you should do. So if you're at your desk and you're just killing time, that's being responsible enough to get your paycheck. But if you really want to be accountable, you should say, why was I hired? What did they ask me in the interview? Am I actually showing up and doing the things that I got hired for when they interviewed me? Or am I mad at my boss or mad at the customer or mad about this? Therefore, I'm shutting down or I'm pulling back, or I don't feel like I was treated fairly. Therefore, I'll just pull back. Accountability is that you should live up to the life you were wanting to live. And part of it is I was hired to do a job. and I want to honor this, and I want to be the kind of person that people count on. And so I think you need to really look at your life honestly. If you go to our website, you can take an assessment for free. It's nobodycaresbook.com. And you can go on there for free and take the assessment and be honest with yourself. And if you're not living the life you really want, do something about it. Stop making excuses. Stop blaming. Stop thinking it'll get better next year. Own it and go do something about it. It's as simple as taking the assessment and starting to see where you are.
Now, do you want people? Can they find you besides the book on there and do the assessment? Can they find everything about you on there, or where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, the website is a great place to learn all about Salem and myself. And the book, my business is at refdallas.com. And that's where I talk about the CEO groups, talk about the executive coaching, the workshops, the leadership development I do. That's on that website.
Okay. And LinkedIn, if people want to connect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn.
Robert J. Hunt on LinkedIn. Is that how you are on LinkedIn? Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify so people have it also put in the show notes for people who are listening to it. And went back to listening. I listened to all my stuff at like 1.7, 1.9. I just fly through it. I can relate to, I can understand everything about it as I'm going, but I'm doing it. And I don't, unless the person talks too fast to begin with, then I do it at regular speed. But most of the time they talk slower because that's what they're told to do.
And I'm a listener to a point. I don't need to be soaking in the stories, but I want to get to the point. So I run through those things and go, okay, that's a cute story. What's the point? And I'm a kind of get to the point guy. And so I can go to a faster speed. It lets me get to the point quicker.
That's correct.
But when my book comes out, listen to the normal speed. Okay.
We'll do.
Oh,
let me know when it is. Yeah. Let me know when it gets out there. And who's helping you do that? The Audible version.
A company called Autodata. I can't do. I'm butchering their name, but I just signed up with them recently. And
is it expensive?
No, it was going to be expensive, and when I was going to go through the publisher, and these guys were half the price, and I think they're doing a very good job. It's called Audivita, Audivita, Audivita Studios, and the guy who took us through it was Chip Davis. He's my babysitter when I read the book, and he's like, no, go back and read that line again. And he was really helpful and made me feel very, very at peace. And I think he did a good job. And I think it was a fair price.
Now, is that a local company or is that online?
It's online. We set up just like this, and we go through Riverside and we just record it.
Okay. And then he just tells you if he wants you to reread that again so they can edit it.
Yeah, he certainly wants me to follow the book and not go off script, although it doesn't have to be exactly word for word. But he'll say something, hey, you left off a word, and that's pretty important in that sentence. Or, you sound like you're fading away at the end of that one. Why don't you do that one again? He's very discerning about that. He was good.
Good. I mean, because I like when people kind of get off script and they talk a little bit more. It just depends on what the type of book it is at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard John Cleese had a book, his documentary about his life, whatever the word is. I have a biography. And at one point he's telling a story and he can't stop laughing. He's going, and then I said, and he's just laughing hysterically. I thought I could see this guy. He was Monty Python. He was hilarious. Right. I could just see him trying to read this book and he's crying himself to tears. And I thought, that's so cool. That's him being him. That was really cool.
Yeah. I interviewed a guy yesterday who's a vet who has Tourette's, and he's actually doing his own Audible. Wow. And he asked people, should I take that stuff out? And everybody told him no. And I said, no, because then people think you're lying, that you don't really have Tourette's, so leave it all in there. And his big word, because I talked to him a lot about it. He has worked on that when the word that comes out, he ADD about it, and his is Shakespeare. And that's just, he goes, I've worked really hard on changing the words. And I might say something that's very close to the bad word that you normally want to be said, but because I changed it enough, I'm like, wow, the stuff that people have to go through that we have no idea what to go through. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a great example of someone who could say, hey, I got screwed in life and I'm going to be angry at life and I'm going to be bitter and complain and stay miserable. Or you can say, I'm going to press by it. Life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. And that guy's owning it. I love that.
And he was a really nice kid. All right, Robert, it was really nice having you on the show today. Really appreciate you being here and sharing your story with us. And again, check out his book, Nobody Cares. Go to nobodycaresbook.com, take the assessment, and then hit up Robert if there's something you want to. Is your peer group everywhere or just locally in Dallas?
Just locally in DFW.
Okay. Oh, DFW, not just Dallas, but DFW.
Dallas Fort Worth. My clients drive from about 2 hours to get to the meetings.
I have a good friend that lives in Dallas.
Huh.
So I'll talk to you after about him. All right, everybody make it a great day. Thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thank you.